Hello ladies and gentlemen, and Idiot Imports is sponsored by PlayAsia, who most likely supplied this game to me unless I specifically mentioned that they didn't. You can follow the affiliate link in the description to buy this game from PlayAsia to support me and my channel, and you can use the coupon code BLUEVITA to save $3 off your order. Thanks for your support, enjoy the show. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I'm here checking out Daisenryaku Perfect. I think it's... That little thing up in the top right there is Senjou no Hasha, which I think stands for Master of the Battlefield or something like that. So this is the third of the 4 Daisenryaku games that are on Vita. Fun fact for you, the digital download sizes for these games actually increase as time goes on, which is kind of hilarious in this game's case. So for the first game, which was the World War II one, it was about 200 meg. Then for Daisenryaku XC2, it was about 450 meg, and now for this one, it's 700 meg. The only reason I know this is because I had to look up these games on the PlayStation Store in Japan to see, like, what DLC and stuff they had, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But anyway, let's talk about the actual game we're here to talk about, which is Daisenryaku Perfect. So, it's got a bunch of more editors this time. I'm not going to go have too deep looks into them, but we can just go have a look as quickly as possible with what I've already got here. So the idea with this one is that you can actually make your own units and your own army lineups. So I've got an army lineup here that's just got one custom jet that I've made. And unfortunately I can't show you what that jet looks like, so I just have to bail out of this at the moment. But the idea is that you use the unit editor, which I believe is this option right here. Indeed it is. And the idea is you can actually make copies of some units, which you can then turn into custom units. So you can actually come here and like edit their names, all the stats on them, and then you build a army around the idea of these units. So you can make like 10 troops, 10 planes, and then turn that into a 20 unit army, for example. Of course, there's like 15 or 16 something factions included in here, so there's plenty of stuff to work with, and it's got the highest unit count of pretty much the entire series. It's got something like 700, well, not the entire series is on Vita. It's got about 700 something units, which is pretty insane. This just lets you change the balance of units you can have between ships, planes, and ground units, which is a bit weird, but we'll let it go. And this, is, of course, is the ever-infamous map editor. And the map editor in this game is actually a little bit more complex than the previous 2 games, because what it lets you do is it lets you do stuff like create objectives for the player to do. So there are ways to do things like transport a unit from one hex to another and stuff like that. Unfortunately, the entire thing's in Japanese, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how to do that. And of course, you can do things like briefing pages, and there's a bunch of like cutscene FMV pre-rendered style things that you can do. And there's also different image themes, so you can get things like futuristic. So you can see here that it's all like space themed, or you can do, there's medieval fantasy and Sengoku themes as well, which I won't bother showing. But yeah, you can do a lot of stuff. However, the map editor is definitely a lot harder to use because, you know, they kind of expect you to know Japanese, obviously, so it is kind of hard to get your head around. The unfortunate thing is that once you've done that, the only thing you can do with your armies and your maps is that you can only play them by yourself. Again, this game doesn't have multiplayer. I mean, it does have pass and play multiplayer. All the previous games have got pass and play multiplayer as well, because I kind of missed how that works, because you can select to have the other players as users, and then you can do, like, literally just pass the Vita between you and a friend, and you can do that, which is fine, I guess. It's just, with the other games with maps by themselves aren't entirely, you know, not design heavy. I mean, it's not specifically that. It's not like a puzzle game where you have to know the solution to the puzzle in order to make the map in the first place. It's more like you can actually get some fun out of it because the AI will do things differently compared to what you might expect and stuff like that. But still, considering this is a game where you can copy units in order to make them into different units, and then you can make entire army compositions and then, you know, put them against each other, this seems like the perfect game where you should at least be able to share that content online with other people, but nope, just like all the other games in this series and just like the other games that we're going to be taking a look at eventually, it's all one player. So that's quite unfortunate, to be perfectly honest, but there you go. So this is the play menu. You have 4 options here. This is the normal option, this is the hard option, this is the simple option, and this is the tutorial option. Tutorial, apparently, because I can't speak today. So, the normal option is the normal base game with all the rules applied. The simple mode is the normal game, but they've given you a very pre-select army. So there's a bunch of rules that don't apply, like Mega Hex, ECM jamming, Interception. A bunch of the abilities don't have any effect. And there's a bunch of things that just don't come out at all, like ICBMs and stuff like that, because they give you a simple predetermined army, and they also turn off the fog of war, which is entirely interesting. And then the tutorial mode is pretty much exactly what it says it is. There's a series of maps end on end, which will let you learn how to play the game. But I didn't bother with them. I just went straight in, and I did okay. I probably would have benefited going through the tutorials, but I did 2 simple maps. My dog's going to be upset for a minute, and I apologize for that. I did 2 simple maps, and I did 1 normal map, just to try and get a little bit of an idea of what I'm doing in. And considering that I spent, like, over an hour translating this game, I've got about 8 hours in this game so far, which is kind of ridiculous for this series. But then again, we are talking about a Daisenryaku game, and levels in this game take an absolutely ridiculous amount of time to get through sometimes, and there are a couple of things that, well, let me put it this way, do not help. But we'll just go into normal first, because there's just something I want to demonstrate. So, we've got 3 options here. We've got New Game Load, Game of My Troops. This game works a lot like Daisenryaku Exceed 2, where you can get a bunch of troops, level them up, and get them into a little bit of a storage mode where you can pull them back out into another fight. You can see here that I've got a bunch of units that are level C and D, and I had 1 unit that was a level 1. And these units up here, the level 1s, what the fuck am I talking about? Level Bs. And once you scroll down to the bottom of the list, you don't get back up the list by going to the bottom again. You have to go all the way back up top, which is kind of silly. And I think you can also, like, swap difficulties here or something, because it let me swap to my simple set of units as well, which is nothing but level D Apaches, which is kind of funny when you think about it. But yeah, we'll go back to my normal units here. And yeah, I keep going back up the top, and I keep going just too far, because I think the game actually, no, it does stop. It just stops 1 later than expected to. Oh, no, I'm an idiot, because I think it's filtering out. It's filtering them out. Because, yeah, you keep different units between different, between different difficulties. So, normal, hard, and simple all have their own different unit stores, which is a little bit strange. But, yeah, don't worry about all that. I'll explain it all now, because I'm, frankly, actually playing this on video is going to be infuriating. So we'll just go have a look through the unit screen now, because this is a Daisenryaku game. We're going to be spending ages in the menus anyway. So we've got, what have we got here? We've got a bunch of different stats about the unit in general, how many units it has in its sort of planes and stuff like that, and its general altitude, where it is on the map at any one particular time, its experience points. If we come here, we can see a bunch of different things, like we can see intercept, avoid, and evade rate. I'm trying to remember, but I don't have my translations up at the moment, so I can't. On the right there, you've got how many units are in a particular thing, how much it costs, and up top, you've got its unit type, its name, obviously, and a bunch of other things. I need to start linking my my translation references I make for these games, because they're very useful. We've got a bunch of different abilities up here, like most other Daisenryaku games have. Instead of having just a bunch of abilities that come up at any one time, it's got this grid of abilities here that never change between units, which is very useful, I have to say, because it means that you don't really have a problem with telling apart all the different abilities. So if I'm just looking here, I can tell that this unit's got a 70% stealth rating. It's got 3 extra ability points in hiding. It can intercept units. it's supplied by machines, which is a little strange, but I think that means it's supplied by things like trucks and maybe landing at airports and stuff like that. And it's also capable of doing destruction, so it can bomb shit, which is actually kind of nice. So, yeah, it's got... No, it's not 70% stealth, sorry, 70% night performance. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, there's a bunch of different things here, like from top left to bottom right. It's got... It's night performance, stealth, hiding, diving, how much armor it's got. Powered by, which I never really understood. Some of these things don't translate properly, so it doesn't really work that well. Whether or not it can land, I think. It's got interception, ACM, interference, shooting, destruction, deformation, airborne. Yeah, some of these just don't translate properly. It's a little annoying. But then there's supply, occupation, and repair. Then there's reinforcement, crosslink, which I have no idea what that is. Set management, which I have no idea either. Road building, mine removal, and supplying. So, yeah, and you've also got your movement table down there. Well, that might be the movement table. Might also be the site table. I don't bloody know. Here you've got all your different stats. You've got fuel on the left there, which is the 80. You've got move and fast move, ECM resistance. I don't know what the thing up the top is. I think that might be the amount of units in one particular squadron. And then there's like 10 squadrons or something like that. And you can select what pack the units have, because that's a thing that's in Daisenryaku games, where you can select what weapons go into what slots. And you've got the accuracy tables and the weapon ability tables. So up the top, you've got all your different... You've got firepower and you've got fire uses, which tell you how many times you can use a particular thing. And you've also got your accuracy tables. And from left to right, you've got... the accuracy is the big thing that's in the square. So you've got ultra high, high, low, ground, sea, and then diving. And then the other three are things that I didn't manage to get translated properly. But I think this might mean stuff like intercontinental ballistic missiles and stuff like that. Because this plane here is actually a really good plane, because it can intercept a lot of aerial stuff. So as soon as something gets into its range, it can just fire off an AAM-4 and just do massive amounts of damage. It's a very good anti-airplane, but it's not great against anything else, unfortunately. And down the bottom you can see... whether or not you can move and fire, what the weapon type is, and a bunch of other things, like does it do mega hex damage, does it do, it's a bunch of stuff that doesn't really come into it as much as you might hope, but then again, you know, it's kind of nice that it doesn't, mainly because it's a freaking Japanese strategy game. The more you can understand off the surface, the better. And you get little, descriptions of what particular things are. And there's like 300-something individual 3D units in this game, which is really neat, actually. By 3D units, I mean 3D, brain work me here. I mean 3D models, not, like, actual units. So, we got a couple of things here. We've got a particular bunch of... My other Vita just turned on, despite the fact I didn't press the power button. That was scary. So, we've got a bunch of different maps here that we can use. Like, this is the System Soft Alpha mark. That's actually kind of neat. I didn't see that before. But yeah, there's a bunch of different maps that we can do here. If you hit the R button, you can also come and do some scenario maps. Unfortunately, there's only 3 of them. And they all have different goals. Like this one here. The goal behind it is to outlast the enemy for 30 turns. Because the enemy will be constantly attacking you, which is kind of annoying. And then you've got 3 campaigns. I was going to say campaign maps, but I'd realized that made no sense. And you've got a bunch of these are just like several maps that go on and on. Unfortunately, I'm not going to do either of these because they're 4-star and 5-star difficulty. And this one's 650 turns, and you are alone against a coalition of 4 AIs and 3 AIs that also hate each other. But that would also take a really long time to get through, so yeah. And then there's this one here, which is kind of strange because it picks out a bunch of random maps in a row for you. And lets you carry units between them, which is, a bit weird if you want me to be perfectly honest. But yeah, as you can see here, there's a bunch of different kinds of maps for you to play and stuff like that. But there's no, like, real campaign, more or less. I mean, like, there's a couple, sure, but once you're done with them, what else are you gonna do? Yeah, it's just a slight bit disappointing, considering the amount of content you could pull out of a game like this. The fact that there's not that many actual, campaigns and stuff to work with means that the absolute majority of like campaign content and stuff that there is mainly just like playing through the single player maps, which is a little bit disappointing. But oh well. The difference between normal and hard mode is that it determines how much you can fuck around with the game. And I know this sounds a bit weird, but let me get into it. So, let's just say we pick Waterline as an example. You've got two options down the bottom right here. If you select the second one, it actually lets you modify some of the things about the game. So there's a bunch of things you got going here. You can select how many turns there are. You can select how much money you get, whether or not the game goes to nighttime or not. That's actually still a thing. You can select a bunch of things here, like you can select how much money you start with. I do not remember what this option does, because there's so many options. You can select the name of your units, although that doesn't really matter. You can change whether or not a user is a computer or not, and you can do this with multiple people, which is what I plan on doing for demonstrating the game for the most part. You can select whether or not there's background music going for any particular unit. I will actually turn this on. But, well, I'm not actually going to be playing this mission, because I'm going to be playing a mission with 4 people. You can change the alliances. You can change some of the stats in here sometimes. It's kind of annoying, because this is... Oh, yep, there it is. There it goes. So this is how you select different things. And this is a bunch of things. Like, this determines where you can build, what you can do with your units and stuff like that, whether or not zone of control applies, which is a big thing in these sorts of games. You know, it's just that sort of stuff. It's neat. You can also come here to change your mission objectives, and this is also how you do it in the map editor, where you can come and select what mission objectives you want to get done, and you can also do things in the map editor like bring reinforcement waves and stuff like that. It's got a lot of potential customization to it, which is why I'm so disappointed in the idea that they didn't have any sort of way to share this content online. It's just a little bit disappointing to me, honestly, because they really should have let you do that. The difference between simple mode and... I didn't mean to go straight back into normal mode. The menu has transitions sometimes and not other times. It's kind of annoying. The difference between normal, hard, and simple mode, as I said, there's also maps exclusive to the simple mode, which is slightly annoying. And yeah. Also notable is that I'm probably not going to be able to find the map that I was just on. Oh wait, no, is that it? No, that's not it. So yeah, they not remap. They do a bunch of different things to the map order and what maps you can play on and stuff like that. And it's just weird, honestly. It's really weird. But yeah, I can still edit some of the things going on here, but yeah, it's just strange, honestly. Yeah, you can't edit any of the things going on here. That's the whole idea of this, which is, yeah. So that's the whole idea of hard mode. It edits what you can piss around with, basically. There's no, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no, like, real restrictions on how you play, really, because the trophies are really simple in this one, actually. It's mainly take 300 turns, build 300 units, destroy 300 units, and beat the System Soft Alpha challenge, which I haven't been able to find yet. It's probably a very specific mission, and that's about it. Also, make a map, play a game on the map, make a custom army, you know, it's really simple stuff. So, I mean, if you're going for like a platinum or something like that, you don't really need to worry about how you play, which is kind of nice, because you can just play all the maps however you decide you want to, which is, it's nice, really. It's kind of refreshing, being able to take a game how you want to take it, which is cool. So, let's hop on in to a map. So, we can just make this guy big computer as well, and let's see, we've actually got an alliance with the yellow this time, which is actually kind of neat. I'm going to turn the background music on, because by default I have it turned off. And I'm probably going to have to turn it back on in the settings as well. I'm also going to have to turn on the realistic battles, which is... Well, we all know what the realistic battles are if we've watched our previous... Or my previous videos. Our previous videos, like you're actually doing anything except watching them. Go me! Alright, if I just hit start, it should drop us straight in. And... Hang on. I need to hit pause. So if I hit X, it'll pause. Nope. I'm gonna have to wait until they actually start taking longer turns. Yeah, for some reason I can't hear anything. Oh yeah, that's probably because nothing's happened yet. Just waiting until... I'm just waiting until I can actually pause the... There we go, that's a sound effect. Come on. Let me... Oop. There, paused it. Alright, now that I've paused it, I can go to the main menu. And I can go into the options and turn up the background music. Because, you know, this is for purpose of demonstration, really. There's the background music. Better than Daisenryaku XC2, but it's still something I wanted to turn off after a few run-throughs. Because it doesn't really change, except if you've got, like, 4 people going at once. So away we go. So yeah, the background music is going to be changing constantly, which is probably going to annoy some people, I admit. But at least it gives you a little bit of a sample of what actually happens, because again, the background music loops every couple of minutes anyway, so at least with this, you get a little bit of extra variety going on. Kind of silly. So, here's how Daisenryaku works if you haven't watched any one of my videos before this, and I'm gonna pop in and control my army at some point, don't worry about that, because I will show off some of the things that are going on. But the idea is that it's basically Advance Wars if Advance Wars got serious. It's based entirely off, like, real-world units and real-world things. Like, you can play real-world armies in this game, like, America has the... brain work with me here, what's the word I'm looking for? America has the reputation of being the most overpowered motherfuckers in the entire game. In the entire series, actually. Because pretty much any game you play America in this series is guaranteed to be overpowered. Because that's just what happens. So the idea is that everybody takes turns and everybody moves around individual units and also gets in attacks. And the different attacks can be affected by different enemies, because all the different units, I should say, because all the different units have different real-world weaponry, and there's all sorts of other rules that come into it as well. Like, there's supply lines going on here, there's roads, and obviously everybody has to move along roads if you want to move faster. All the different tiles give you different, both sight ranges and different movement ranges. There's different facilities to pick up, like you can pick up harbors, they'll let you make ships, there's different manufacturing fields, they'll let you make different units, but sometimes they won't let you make different units, they'll only let you make units within a specific range of your base. There's things you have to pick up, buildings you have to pick up, because if you pick up buildings, it gets you extra money every turn, which is definitely what you want to do. But there's also the zone of control rules, where if you're moving within a hex of an enemy, you will be slowed to a crawl until you can either destroy the enemy or take over their structures or abilities. There's things like Fog of War, as you can see here. And if you run into an enemy that you don't see, they get a free shot on you, which means that keeping a defensive line in an area that the enemy can't see is a really good idea, because if they stray within range of your abilities, that means they can wander right into you and just wreck, you get their faces wrecked. Like, there's a couple of SAM turrets that I have that I like to set up in a place where the enemy can't see them, and then just blunder on in and they get absolutely annihilated, because that's amazing to do. And again, there's several hundred units, all with their own different abilities and their own different stuff. Like, there's a bunch of different units that can carry around units. There's a bunch of SAM turrets that can extend to form a gigantic grid of units. There's ECM jammers, which can prevent, like, homing missiles and stuff from working. There's destruction units, which can bomb actual buildings out of, like, working order until you can get something in to repair them. You can build bridges across rivers. You can do all sorts of crap in these sorts of games. And Daisenryaku Perfect is... well, it is based off the PC version, which has something like 1,300 units, which is fucking ridiculous. We're talking like 25 full-on armies of units worth of stuff there, which is kind of great, because all the different armies in this game play slightly differently, because their units are differently balanced. So you can have like Japan, for example, are heavily focused on their navy. That's actually one thing I wanted to bring up. Like, the navies in this game are actually slightly, well, not slightly weaker, they're actually fairly weaker than they are in the other games, or maybe it's just my bad luck having run into units that are stupidly good at taking out boats. But yeah, I've had some really bad luck with navies just getting absolutely slaughtered, but I've also had the same luck, because my SAM turrets, when I rolled them out, also did massive amounts of damage to boats. So maybe it's just because I'm not playing Daisenryaku Exceed 2 or Daisenryaku the World War II one, where you could where boats were extremely powerful if you didn't have the right units. But yeah, they there's a bit, it's a bit more balanced, I guess, but at the same time, you've got boats costing an absolute ton of money, because units do cost money to build this time around, and it's just yeah, it just takes an absolute ton of time to it takes an absolute ton of money to build stuff. The manufacturing system works a lot more like Daisenryaku the World War II one this time around as well, because you have a maximum of 100 units, and some missions have a maximum of units that you can build over the entire mission. I think in one mission I played, it was 250. And the idea is that within a specific, well, in some missions it's within a specific range, you can build up to 6 units on, say, an airfield. I'm actually going to swap out to an actual human player shortly, just so I can demonstrate this. But yeah, as you can see, the AI has been taking its turns in the background without me. And hopefully I'll be able to show off some actual combat. There has been some combat going on in the background, but I will try and show off some actual combat, because it doesn't seem to be showing off any actual combat, despite the fact I think I set my combat options properly, but I may not have, because, you know, I'm an idiot and I just tend to have really bad luck with this. But yeah. I will pause at the beginning of Blue's turn, and I will take him back over and I can try and demonstrate some combat and stuff like that. Speaking of which, there we go. Now if I pause, if I remember correctly, the option to change player is right here. Here we go. So, if I change that to user, that means I can regain control. And we've got a bunch of things we can do here. Unfortunately, I've got no one over here, so I might not be able to actually show off some combat this turn, which kind of just... Oh, wait, no, we've got planes. I can... And... Is that an enemy tank? Kind of looks like one, so... Alright, so... The annoying thing about this game is the interface. Now, there's a bunch of things that are annoying about this, because they've added touch to this game, and I think Daisenryaku XC2 had touch in some sense, but in this game they've made it so that touch is a full-on thing. However, touch being a full-on thing is actually kind of annoying, because the touch in this game doesn't feel particularly well integrated. If you tap something, the camera just shifts all the way over there, so if you tap like a unit or something, your view will go flying across the screen, which is kind of annoying, because you can't tell if you're tapping the right thing or not, which kind of sucks. Also of note is that to actually see the unit stats, you actually have to do something really annoying. You have to press circle to activate a unit, and then you have to press square on it. The annoying thing is, not only do you have to go to the effort to do this in order to see like fuel and stuff like that, and there seems to be no other way to see the unit, this doesn't actually work if you've already moved a unit, because you can't select them like that, which is infuriating. But what am I going to do? Alright, so let's show off some actual combat. So we can move this in here, and we can get an attack in. And you can see there's a bunch of buttons there that are all blacked out, that are a bunch of different things that you can do. Which is kind of annoying, because what happens is, just those buttons don't light up until you can actually do the thing they relate to. So I don't know why they're all there, like shown by default in the first place. But anyway, let's show an attack off, shall we? Unfortunately, for some reason, I walked into range of that. But here's what a realistic battle looks like. Yeah, that happened. So, yeah, for some reason, that was a thing. But now we can actually try and get an actual attack in. And we can see that the game does give us an old estimate. An old estimate. What the fuck is an old estimate? It does give us an estimate of how much damage we're going to do, and it does let us change our weapons, as one would usually expect. And of course, this game also runs on things like, there's a bunch of different percentages that are going on here, and you've also got ammo, and you have to get your supply trucks out, and there is stuff like that going on, and you can swap to simple battles, which is, yeah, for some reason that didn't actually show the battle, which was a little strange, but we'll work with it. And of course, you do get advantages like, you know, hiding in trees and stuff like that. Oh yeah, it's probably because I pressed circle to skip the intro scene, which is interesting. But yeah, the realistic battles actually load up a lot faster this time, which is a lot nicer, but at the same time, they look a lot more shit. They really do. It's just, yeah, oh man, that kind of sucked. Well, everybody took some damage there. And of course, you can capture buildings, and there's all sorts of stuff going on, stuff like that. It's just, it all makes sense, more or less. Let's just zoom out, and I'm going to go back to the options menu and turn off the background music. I'll put it down so that you don't have to hear it as much. I think this and this, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And you can see there's a bunch of different options here, but they're all related to music, and these 5 down here are related to UI stuff, and this all here is all related to display stuff. So I'm not going to bother translating it all, because I didn't bother translating it all myself. Frankly, in a game like this, you probably want to have as much information on the screen as possible. However, something does actually annoy me about that, so just for the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to move this guy here underneath this plane. Now I can't see that troop. There are ways around this, like for example, if you press L, if you go over the top of like a plane that's already moved, and it's like, oh, you've already moved this plane, but for some reason it already thinks that there's a unit here that you can move. Because pressing L moves you to the next unit you can move, and pressing R moves you to a structure. So that's the only way I can think of seeing units. Also, I mean, you can go over the unit and press like triangle, was it? Yeah, you can go over and press triangle to see every unit at every altitude. But at the same time, that's kind of annoying, because with Daisenryaku Exceed 2, you could see every unit because every unit was represented in 3D, so you could move the camera to see units that were above and below. This was a lot more natural, and with the sort of unnatural integration of touch movement that just encourages you to use, like, the buttons and stuff anyway, the UI is a bit of a step backwards from Exceed 2, I gotta say, and I gotta admit that UI for XC2 makes me want to play as well, because there's one other thing that's missing, and that's marching orders, where you can select a unit, give it a path to move on, and then every turn select something to make it move on that path. That's completely missing from this game, so it's quite unfortunate, honestly. I would have preferred to have seen just some of the UI benefits from Daisenryaku XC2 make it over here, but unfortunately that just doesn't happen. If I come back to, was it this option? Yes, so if I turn that back to computer, it starts moving by itself again, and we'll just let it go, basically. So, that was just a basic demonstration, and of course, we've got a bunch of... I did turn simple battles back on, so you can see what the simple battles look like as well. You do have the option to turn this off when it's not your faction being attacked, and considering that I had that option turned on, and I wasn't actually playing any of the factions, that means I wasn't actually displaying the battles. But yeah, as you can see, well, I'll just let the battles continue on here, basically, but it's a Daisenryaku game, basically, so I'll actually, I'll turn the battles off now, because they really need to be turned off for this video to actually continue moving smoothly, so, there's this option here. It's a shame, because the amount of improvements and stuff that are in Daisenryaku Exceed 2 in the UI sense didn't make their way over here. The gameplay sure did. I mean, sure, this gameplay's probably been around since Daisenryaku Exceed on the PlayStation, or just the earlier games in general, sure, but I'm looking at this from I've been playing the games in order on Vita standpoint, so it's kind of interesting that they decided not to include some of the UI elements. There are some other things that I would like to talk about as well. I mean, the game's overall scale remains intact because all the units moving around and all the buildings that you can capture and just all of that happening and stuff like that. It's the scale is exactly the same. It just feels smaller. Like, I mean, it just feels a lot smaller because the 3D-ness of Exceed 2 meant that the whole game felt a lot bigger. So, it's just a little bit disappointing to see that there's basically nothing going on here in terms of just, you know, it really does feel like a game of chess, while Daisenryaku Exceed 2 felt like a huge game of war. I mean, I know this is literally just my personal opinion on how the game's graphical style makes things look, but that's just the way I feel, alright? That's just the way I feel about the entire thing. They actually replaced some of the graphics of Daisenryaku. Like, Daisenryaku Perfect has had, for the previous few ports of this game, like, it started out on the PSP, then it came to the PS3, then it came to the Vita. The graphics of this game actually got an overhaul between PS3 and Vita, and I've got to say, I actually liked the PS3's graphics more. These games' graphics look a lot like... They just have a few graphical glitches going on, and they don't look as impressive. I mean, I should probably put, like, a picture of the, PS3 graphics on screen so that you can see what they look like, but, yeah, it's not my favorite graphical look of the series. I like the World War II look better, and the, Gendai Daisenryaku 2016, which is the final game in this series that I'll be looking at, it's got a similar sort of style, but at the same time, they've given it a bit of a graphical overhaul as well, and it just looks a lot nicer. So, it'll be interesting to look at, to say the least. But yeah, despite the fact that the game doesn't look like Daisenryaku Exceed 2, it doesn't look like a gigantic war, it just looks like a big chessboard with a lot of similar looking pieces. It's still a really nice little strategy game, more or less. I mean, the AI isn't the smartest thing in the world, but of course it's a strategy game. The AI in strategy games is never that smart, and I know someone's gonna bollock me for saying that, but I mean, there are some games that have really good AI, but these games' AI are capable, but at the same time, they're not unbeatable, which is kind of nice, especially on hard mode, but yeah. I do like Daisenryaku Perfect, Senjou no Hasha. It's just that, well, it takes a couple of steps back from Daisenryaku Exceed 2 that I don't like. Daisenryaku Exceed 2 is on the same scale, except it's got that whole 3D thing, which is a lot more beginner-friendly. The menus and stuff are a little bit more discernible. It doesn't have things like ECM jamming rules, so it's a little bit more simpler, and it's just overall easier to get into as someone who's looking for a strategy game. I mean, once you're done with Daisenryaku Exceed 2, moving on to Daisenryaku Perfect is probably a perfectly fine idea. Don't get me wrong. It's just the idea that, like, if I'm looking to say, well, what Daisenryaku game should you get first? Daisenryaku Exceed 2 is probably at the top of the pile right now. Sure, this game's got a few other things going for it, like, you can build more than one unit at a time, unlike Daisenryaku Exceed 2. You can build up to 6 units on one hex, which is pretty neat. But then again, you can build on units around the current thing as well, which, you know, it works, more or less. It's just, yeah. It's not as beginner-friendly as Daisenryaku Exceed 2, so I wouldn't recommend this game over that game, but at the same time, it still works as a strategy game all on its own. So, yeah, I do like it. It's just, yeah, this is probably coming second so far, with the World War II game being third, just because it's World War II, and, well, you need to know a fair bit about World War II to stand a chance in that game, whereas in this game, everybody's a little bit more likely to know more modern weaponry and stuff, so you'll have a better idea of what's going on purely because of, you know, modern weaponry is a little bit more well-known in this day and age. And again, the content creation stuff is really neat. It's just, considering that it's disappointing that there's no, like, online sharing system, and the fact that you basically have to make your own army, so you have to do all the balancing and stuff yourself, and you can't share it with anyone. I mean, like, the game says on startup, network features will be disabled while this program is in use, which is, again, really disappointing, because imagine, like, a Daisenryaku game on Steam with the Steam Workshop, where you could share maps, you could share armies, you could share missions, and you could share custom units. Imagine that. Like, imagine being able to download entire new campaigns for this game for free, but, you know, there hasn't been a PC release for this series since, I think, 2006, so that is also a little bit disappointing. I was also looking at picking that one up, but again, they only just took, like, the online lobbies down for it after, like, 10 years, which is kind of insane. But, yeah, the only place I was able to actually find it was Yahoo Auctions Japan for, like, 8,000 yen, which is, like, no thank you. I feel guilty spending money on myself when I've got stuff to do for this channel anyway. I mean, I'm trying to save up for a test kit so I can actually get started on PlayStation development, but I just keep running into things that keep making me spend money. So, it's just quite unfortunate, really. But, yeah. That's, I really shouldn't be complaining about myself in a video about a Daisenryaku game. Also quite annoying is that the camera jumps back to the freaking HQ every time the AI turn starts. So unless someone gets into combat with you, you won't know what's going on, and that kind of sucks. But yeah, as you can see, the battles are getting to be an absolutely huge scale, which is great. Like, I love just having an absolute ton of units all over the fucking place. Like, imagine, I think the maximum map size for this game is 96 by 96. So imagine a 96 by 96 map with 400 units just going at it from like 4 different countries. Or no, this game actually supports 8 countries total in one map. So imagine 8 different armies going at it. That would be absolutely freaking insane. The downside being that, again, like, we've been talking over this game for like 20 minutes now with the AI taking all the turns for me, and it's still been 20 minutes. And it's only been 15 turns. So, it's just like, it's really just like, what? The game's pacing is as slow as ever, which, again, is just kind of a, you know, a sort of, it's just something you have to take when you're dealing with a grand strategy game. That's just what happens. Like, I'd say the same thing about Civilization 5, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying that considering that it took me 8 hours to get through 3 maps and 2 of them were on the easier game difficulty, yeah, considering, you have to keep that in mind when you make your purchase, because you could very easily get bored of this from just one battle if you don't like the scale, and if you don't like how slow the turns can tend to be, especially when you have to be, especially in like a one-on-one fight where you have units like forming a front line and you have like 10 or something combats going on every turn. So yeah, that can always be a problem. But at the same time, it's still a Daisenryaku game. It's still the hardcore, massive scale, realistic Advance Wars style game that it's always been, and it's still really cool for being that. And I do like it for doing its own thing across all sorts of different, time zones and, well, time eras, and just having all sorts of different units and having different armies and basically letting you be like the tabletop strategy general in a video game. That's a sneeze. So, yeah, I really do like it. It's just, if I was to recommend a first game, I'd recommend Daisenryaku C2 over this one, just for like the UI being more easy to get into. But if you're looking for something a little bit more complex, this is definitely the game you want to get into. But then again, I'm about to take a look at Gendai Daisenryaku 2016, which is apparently like a modernized version of the World War II one, where there's a campaign where you have to build up your camp and your units, and you have to spend money to do researching and upgrades and stuff like that. It's going to be an interesting thing. Like, I've been through 3 games in this series so far, and there hasn't been one that I haven't liked. they're all really interesting games. And that is, interesting. Wow, what a sentence. I've been through three games in the series and they've all been interesting. That's a great way to say it, but yeah, it's a really just, I can't think of any other word that fits other than interesting, but it's a really cool series and I've enjoyed looking at all the games, which is a absolute surprise, honestly. Like, I'm really looking forward to getting through all the games so I can pick one. So I can pick one and start actually playing it really seriously and actually put some real time into it. But the way things are going with Vita at the moment, like this is, none of this is definite, right? But I have 4 imports coming in right now, and I'll be having 4 imports coming in at the end of the month, October 20 and 27, when some of the games come out. So there's going to be an absolute ton of imports for me to do, and unfortunately, since this game is on a cartridge, I'm going to have to pick and choose what I actually want to play. But then again, since I have a second Vita, I can just put Daisenryaku on my second Vita and just play that for a while. But yeah, I won't be doing another Daisenryaku game for a while, basically, not a video on one anyway. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting few weeks, because I actually asked for the 4 imports like a week ago, and then unfortunately everything got pushed back, a bunch of games I didn't get review copies for. So it's basically going to be a really interesting few weeks, because I'm going to be doing a bunch of games all at once. So, yeah. It's always an interesting game, a Daisenryaku game. Really expensive, but, you know, that's just the way these sorts of games work. And I'm probably going to end the video off right here, because I'm already at 45 minutes of just rambling, and I need to stop rambling over this game at some point, because I need to get started on Exist Archive, which I got review code for yesterday, and I only just got around to downloading. So, yeah, I should probably go play that. So, this is about 16 turns worth of Daisenryaku, and let's just go have a look at the battlefield. I can't actually turn off the Fog of War, which is a little bit disappointing, but, yeah, just one viewpoint of this alone, where there's an absolute ton of just jets and planes and stuff flying over and all that. It's just cool. It looks cool. It looks cool just having this gigantic amount of units just constantly moving down this road here, and it appears some of the roads actually been destroyed, so the AI is smart enough to know that destroying this road actually reduces the amount of distance they can move. So there's some actual strategy going on there, and there's a bunch of buildings down here that nobody bothered to come capture. So the first person to go and capture those gets a bit of a money leg up, and it's just, yeah, as you can see, I don't usually like strategy games, which is weird, because I really end up liking Daisenryaku, because, like, most of the information you need to know about Daisenryaku is displayed on screen, so it's just, yeah, it doesn't overwhelm me like other strategy games do. It just takes a really long time to get through everything, which is really something else, but yeah. I'm going to stop talking now, so this has been Blue Maxima, checking out Daisenryaku Perfect Senjou no Hasha. I like it, except the UI is a bit annoying, and it takes a couple of steps back in that sense from Daisenryaku Exceed 2, so it's not exactly beginner-friendly, and trying to remember where all your units are, considering that only one can be displayed on screen at a time, is kind of annoying. But at the same time, I'm just trying to remember how to get out of this fucking screen here. But yeah, I mean, it's still a fun Daisenryaku game. Just if you're looking for a Daisenryaku game, I'd recommend going and watching my Daisenryaku Exceed 2 video first, because that game is a lot more beginner friendly than this one. And considering, you know, just considering all of the things, like there's a couple of mechanics that have been removed from this one, but at the same time, it makes the game a little more streamlined, so it kind of works in that sense. So I'm gonna stop talking now. So I will see you all next time.